If you come for the Golden Knights, you better not miss. That's the mantra of 15 NHL teams as they look to dethrone Vegas as Stanley Cup champions this season. The race for the Cup began over the weekend, and there's a lot to break down so far. Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Will Duerksen, joined by Josh Bartosik and Cailey, Thalman, and we're going to break down the NHL postseason so far. Vegas begins its run for another Cup against Dallas in the Western Conference first round, but there are multiple other intriguing series. Josh, I'll go to you first on this. What series out west catches your eye?
Well, if Game 1 was any indication, this Winnipeg-Colorado series is going to be the series of the entire playoffs. 13 goals combined, and there were 3 goals scored in 66 seconds. That second period might have been the craziest thing I've seen in my life. And the Winnipeg Wild is just so cool. I mean, look at it. Hockey is better when Winnipeg's in the playoffs because you get stuff like this. Kyle Connor and Adam Lowry both had 2 goals in that game for Winnipeg. They were fantastic. It was such a great atmosphere. And for the Avalanche, they won the Stanley Cup a few years ago, but they got to figure out goaltending. Alexander Georgiev was not it. 7 goals on 23 shots. If the Avs even want a chance to win this series, they need better goaltending. And right now, I don't think they're going to get it. I think the Jets win this one in 7.
I agree with you. I also had the Jets winning in 7 for the same reason. The Avs cannot figure out their goaltending. However, the Avs can score, and that was on display in this game and has been on display all season. They lead the league with almost 3.7 goals per game, which is an astonishing statistic. Now, the Jets, however, do have the momentum and the advantage coming into this series, coming off an 8-game win streak to end the regular season, and they beat the Avs in all 3 games they played so far this season, or in the regular season, rather. So I do think they will take this one in 7 games, but I definitely think it is going to be a fight coming from the Avs, especially with McKinnon scoring or putting up 140 points this season to make a run for the Hart Trophy. Now, going over, I don't think you can mention the Western Conference without mentioning the Dallas Stars, who ended the season with 113 points, 1 point out of the President's Trophy. Now, the Stars, they are just well-rounded from top to bottom, which I think is the key when it comes to winning the Stanley Cup. They have 8 players scoring 20-plus goals this season, which is astonishing, and they have 13 players putting up 20-plus points this season. Now, their question is also goaltending. Jake Ottinger is kind of inconsistent. He was really bad in the month of March and ended the regular season with almost a 2.7 goals against average. However, he really got it dialed in April, decreasing that GAA to below 2 goals a game, taking it down to 1.7. So if he's solid, this should be no problem. However, the Knights are the kryptonite of the Dallas Stars, so I think this will be the hardest series for the Stars to get through. I could see it going to 6 or 7 games, but I think if they get through this one, they should be smooth sailing to the Stanley Cup Finals.
I'll touch on your point first, Cailey. The Vegas Golden Knights, seemingly, like you said, have beaten Dallas almost every time. It's a short rivalry in the postseason, but a good one at that, except if you're a Dallas fan. And Josh, that Winnipeg-Colorado series, if you like offense, that's the series for you. So much firepower on both rosters. All right, we're done with the West for now. Moving to the Eastern Conference, where there's some historic and some geographic rivalries that headline the opening round. Cailey, what series is a must-watch in the East?
I think there are a lot of series that are must-watches in the East. I'm going to start up in Boston with the Bruins and the Leafs. Gosh, the poor Toronto Maple Leafs, who seemingly have to face Boston almost every year. They haven't beaten the Bruins for over 60 years in the postseason, which is astonishing, not very good at all. And they really kind of blank the bed in the first game of the season, losing 5-1. Now, Boston, they're also coming off an embarrassing exit in the first round last season to the Panthers after winning the President's Trophy and being one of the most dominant teams in NHL history. So I think they do come in and win this series. However, I think as we speak, the game is tied. Game 2 is tied between the Leafs and the Bruins. So it'll be really interesting to see how this one plays out. Now, going farther south, you've got the Rangers and the Capitals. I don't know how the Washington Capitals are in the Stanley Cup playoffs, to be completely honest. And I know Josh will agree with me on this one. They came into the playoffs with a -37 goal differential, which is unheard of, I believe, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So they really have no business being here. They've been injured all season. There are over 6 rookies who are playing in their first NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. I think if the Caps win 1 game, maybe 2. That would be
Throw
lucky.
a parade, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. However, the Rangers have had a really hard time scoring. They missed so many wide open opportunities. They really have to put those away if they want to win the series, especially going into round 2 against most likely the Carolina Hurricanes. And that's who I'm going to talk about next. I know you're thrilled to talk about this subject, but maybe
thrilled.
not now because they are down, I believe, 3-0 to the Islanders as we speak. But the Carolina Hurricanes have a shot at the Cup this year. And I really hate saying that. Their offensive productivity has been really astonishing. Aho is averaging over a point a game. Jarvis has 33 goals this season, and Svechnikov has 52 points in 59 games. So across the board, that's astonishing. And they picked up Jake Gensel, and they also picked up Evgeny Kuznetsov at the deadline as well, who's been a great addition to their offense. Now, special teams is going to be huge for the Hurricanes in this series. They have not performed on the level they should be performing based on the regular season so far in this series. They ended the season #1 on the penalty kill and #2 on the power play, and that has not translated to this series so far, so that's an area I'd like to see them improve.
Yeah, there's a lot of areas I'd like to see the Hurricanes improve on. #1, you mentioned Jake Gensel and Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, all those star players. Where are they right now in this series? It's been ridiculous. Bo Horvat's showing up for the Islanders. None of the top guys for the Hurricanes are showing up. That's why they're down 3-0, probably 4-0 by the time that this segment's done. But I'll digress. I'll move over to the Panthers-Lightning series and the Battle of Florida, which we saw this a few years ago. The Lightning ended up coming out on top in a year where they were about $20 million over the cap by the time the playoffs came around. But this is going to be a great series. I mean, you have the Panthers team that made it on such a deep run last year as the second wild card team, went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. And now this year, Sam Reinhart, 57 goals this year. You still have Matthew Tkachuk, who I think anybody in the playoffs would like to have on your team. And then on the other side, you have probably a Hart Trophy finalist in Nikita Kucherov with 100 assists, tying Connor McDavid. And the fact we have 2 guys at 100 assists this year is badonkers. And then you move on to goaltending. Goaltending is going to be the key in this series. You have Andrei Vasilevsky, 2-time Cup winner, one of the best to ever do it, versus Sergei Bobrovsky, who's finally playing up for that $10 million contract. Right now, it looks like the Panthers are the better team, but it's going to come down to how well Bobrovsky can play down the stretch.
Now, usually we say defense wins championships. I think in the Stanley Cup playoffs, goaltending wins championships.
I have to agree with you on that one.
I couldn't agree more. And one last point on the Florida-Tampa series. It seems like every year only one of those teams goes on a deep run. So that series might be a measuring stick for who we see in the Cup final. Speaking of the Stanley Cup final, before we sign off for the night, I'd like to know from each of you, who's going to emerge from both conferences, and who do you see lifting Lord Stanley? Josh, you first.
Well, I made this before Game 2 of this Hurricanes-Islanders series start, but I'm still going to stick with it. I'm going to stick true. I might be called a homer, but I have the Canucks versus the Hurricanes, and look, the Canucks this is the first year we've seen this core really thrive. I mean, Quinn Hughes is probably win the Norris Trophy, leading defenseman with over 90 points this year. Thatcher Demko, that young stud in net, was ridiculous in Game 1. They had a third period comeback, and I think the Canucks, when they're playing well, I think the NHL does better as well. I think a Canadian team finally makes it back, and you already touched on all the points you can touch on with the Hurricanes, and maybe they'll find a way. But playing the same team back-to-back years in the Islanders is not good for them, as it's looking pretty apparent right now in Game 2. But I have that as my Stanley Cup final. I will still pick the Hurricanes. I'm going to stick with them because they made so many big moves at the deadline. They went all in. It's all or nothing this year for the Hurricanes. I think they finally get it done.
I'm going to be kind of predictable here. I think the Canes also get to that Stanley Cup final. I think there's a chance that if the Bruins get past the Leafs, they also make it to that Eastern Conference Championship, and that would be a really good matchup. But I do think the Canes should come out on top, assuming they clean things up in this Islander series. Now on the West Coast, like I said, if the Stars get past the Knights, I think it's pretty smooth sailing to that Stanley Cup Finals, and I think the winner comes from that Eastern Conference, whether it be the Bruins or the Canes. For your sake, Josh, I really hope it's the Canes this season.
For my sanity, too.
And I'm sure all the people in Raleigh, North Carolina would feel the same way. I'm going to go Boston out of the East. Old core plus redemption tour. Sounds like a winning formula for me. And for the West, Nashville. Got hot at the right time. We've seen these teams in recent years get in as a 7 or an 8 seed or as a wild card team and make it all the way to the Cup. Music City, hope you like hockey in June. And that does it for this Stanley Cup preview segment on Penn State Sports Night. We'll have to wait and see who comes out on top and takes the Cup home. For Cailey, Thalman, and Josh Bartosik, I'm Will Duerksen. Thank you for watching, and have a great night.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, and follow our socials down below.
And as always, we are
Penn State Sports Night.